All right, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, everybody. Today is Tuesday, July the 27th, 2021, and we have quite a bit to cover today. So for those who aren't familiar with it, we did I think a 4 to 5 hour live stream between Camden and myself this past Sunday, basically doing a live version of Let's Get Banned, where we had our faces in the corner of the screen and essentially we caught up on all the news of the past week because we had about 5 or 6 days off prior to that. So with that being said, I do want to say before we jump into the news, I just want to say very, very quickly that the reason why you haven't been seeing any of the main episodes or even the members episodes in the past week is because Camden and myself initially had a plan for me to come to the United States and things like that, and it didn't end up panning out, not because of anything on our end, but because we do believe in all honesty, we're being messed with in different ways, and I don't want to go any further than that because I don't want to seem like I'm bullshitting, so I want to understand the situation that we're in before we go like fully public with what happened. And at the same time too, I just want to say very quickly as well that we have been doing a lot of interviews of long form content, so it's difficult with just a two-man team to put out the regular episodes, do the long form, and deal with some of the stuff that's been going on with regards to ourselves. So with that being said, though, let's jump right into it. So let's see here. To begin with, let's take a look. There was an explosion at a German chemical site, and it left some people dead and some missing at Leverkusen. Now, hopefully I pronounced that correctly. With that being said, I don't know the specifics of what happened in this case with regards to this explosion. Could it have been a cyber attack? Could it have been, something else that may have actually triggered this? Could it have been purely accidental, right? Maybe there were certain regulatory things that were not put in place that should have been, right? With that being said, though, unfortunately, this is one of those stories that we have to kind of let it just pan out and see where it takes us as time goes on. With that being said, the next thing I wanted to talk about, and guys, I got to be honest with all of you, it's like there's news coming out every 2 minutes here. Even 2-3 months ago, I used to just wait till, midday, rack up all the news, the necessary news. But now it's like every single minute there's something going on. I mean, I'm sure there always was, but it's become more and more prominent to the public eye now. The next thing is that Biden had said, and don't quote me directly on this, but he said this today. He said, if the United States is going to be at war with a major superpower like China or Russia, you name it, a shooting war, like a physical kinetic war, like a traditional form of warfare. He said it is going to be because of the repercussions of the United States enduring very heavy cyber attacks. Again, I see what he's saying, right? There will be an episode coming out very shortly where we interview a gentleman by the name of Alex Phillips, and he firmly does believe that ultimately, when we take a step back and we look at the big picture here, there's no way around this. I mean, in terms of the cyber warfare, it's there. It's stronger than nukes. It's stronger than almost anything else, right? With that being said, too, Mr. Phillips also believes, believe it or not, that the DoD was blackmailed and compromised by the SolarWinds hack. That actually, to be quite honest with all of you, he also believes puts I guess you could say blackmail operations like what Epstein was doing to shame, just because, again, if you can hack into the Department of Defense, you know what kind of data you can get, especially if you can hack into the really secretive layers of it. My God, right? The next thing is that the CDC has said that some states in the US will require face masks to be worn even by the fully vaccinated. Again, the question then becomes this: is it ever going to end, right? Now, speaking of which, that takes me to my next point here, which, if we take a look, what we're going to find is that we'll see right here. Sorry, guys, just give me one quick second. A total antibody levels start declining 6 weeks after complete vaccination with Pfizer and AstraZeneca vaccines, and can reduce significantly by more than 50% over 10 weeks, according to a new study published in the Lancet Journal. So the question now becomes, assuming this data is accurate and correct in the Lancet Journal, right? And I'll tell you right now, if this story doesn't gain traction in the mainstream media by tomorrow midday, it probably won't, to be honest with you. However, this then raises the question, assuming this data is accurate, does that mean that we're going to need booster shots every 3 to 6 months? Think about it. If let's just say in a hypothetical world, you get fully vaccinated, right? But then 10 weeks after that vaccination, your antibodies drop 50% and then even more as each week goes by after that. Could it have been pre-planned this way? I'm not trying to start a conspiracy, but again, freedom of speech. Do we not have the right to analyze and ask questions? Right? So again, could it have been planned in the sense that, again, for Big Pharma, it's good in the sense of they can keep implementing new, again, I got to be careful here, but potential technologies, right, into the booster shots. At the same time, they make tons of profit from it. Again, it's not that far-fetched to think that they would pull this kind of crap, right? The next thing is that private equity firms in China are, quote, waiting for their deaths, end quote, after new rules have been implemented. This is pertaining to the CCP basically cracking down on anything that's against the CCP. And I'm not speaking about the people of China. I'm talking about the CCP. At the same time, allegedly, according to the BBC, the CCP has also enacted or incited a violent mob to go after BBC reporters in Hong Kong. So again, it's on, guys. What I'm trying to say here is tensions are rising everywhere at every level. Whether it's just the average person walking by you on the street, or whether it's political governments. And it's so unfortunate, but something is coming, and I hate to have to say this during the Kraken episodes, but I don't know if it'll be good or bad, but it might, who knows what the short term will hold, right? The next thing is that Amazon has denied considering accepting Bitcoin as payment, which sent the price of Bitcoin to crash. Well, again, whenever someone or something or an entity or a company says something bad about Bitcoin or cryptocurrency, it's usually Bitcoin that ends up taking the hit, and then vice versa too, right? There was some rumors and some speculation that Amazon was considering or testing out accepting Bitcoins, which again, to be quite fair, in the short term would have been quite big for those invested in Bitcoin that wanted to make that quick profit, that quick jump, right? The next thing is that the U.S. combat forces are going to be leaving Iraq by the end of the year, excuse me. Okay, this is quite interesting because, you see, I have a theory, and I could be very wrong, and I want to say this is a theory. They're getting out of the Middle East, and they're going to focus on Africa now. In my humble opinion, I could be very wrong. But again, the timing of this is quite interesting, and you'll see some of that if you keep watching or listening in this episode. The next thing is that the head of the Pentagon has called for constructive, stable relations with China. Okay, they can call for things. What's really happening on the back end? That's what we got to know, right? The next thing is that North and South Korea have restored severed cross-border hotlines, if you want to call it, with regards to improving communication between the two nations. Of course, South Korea being, I guess you could say, much more democratic than North Korea, as most people know. You don't even have to have different political or opposing political views to know that. But again, I guess, look, is there an intelligence angle at play here between the two countries? I'm sure there is. I'm sure the U.S. is behind, assisting in South Korea with their intelligence capabilities and apparatuses. And I'm sure the North Koreans are aware of that too. So again, to what extent does this occur is hard to say, right? Excuse me. The next thing is that the Cuban embassy in Paris has been targeted with petrol bombs, and certain Cuban officials and politicians have accused the United States government, no one in particular, but the United States government as a whole, I guess you could say, as being responsible for inciting this type of violence, or at least motivation to do these type of things, right? Again, they make a fair point. There's tons of protests outside the White House right now too, right? So again, you can't be for one thing, like I said in the Kraken a week and a half ago, as Biden says, nice and peaceful during the speeches, but then when it comes time to actually taking action, you're doing the imperialistic version of things. You can't play both sides. People are not stupid, or people are not as naive as they were 50 years ago, because now, again, technology, information, things like that. 50 years ago, whatever 2-3 newspapers people picked up, whatever 3 or 4 news channels people watched, that's all they got. So if it wasn't reported, nobody knew, right? And even when presidents made speeches, they would make a speech and everyone would watch on the TV, would look nice, and then you never really knew what they actually did when, they would go to war somewhere or something like this. So, again, I'm just speaking as, the average citizen. The next thing is that a Russian regulator has blocked Navalny's website. Again, like I've been saying for the past few months, Putin doesn't care. He got his internet regulator guy to block Navalny's website. It's pretty simple at that point. I don't know how much more clear or precise this could be. Right? Or concise, excuse me. The next thing is that a cardinal and 9 others are accused of bleeding the Vatican of tens of millions of dollars in donations. This will allegedly be the biggest trial in the Vatican's history. It is a $412 million fraud case. Again, folks, politics, organized crime, very much one and the same. I'm hesitant to say religion because I don't want to put it all in that one, bucket of just it's all bad or it's all propaganda, it's all about control. But I mean, there's a point to be raised there. There's a point to be raised there. I'd like to see the actual consequences of the cardinal and these Vatican I guess members or priests or what have you. And I'm curious to know as well, if they get sentenced, is there someone behind them that made them take the fall? That's another thing I'd like to know. The next thing is that the French Parliament approved the COVID passes and passports for the nurses and the healthcare workers and government workers in certain areas, despite the mass protests. Again, this is what I was saying before. The politicians always hope, it seems, as though that they can outlast the protests, right? Or the protesters, because eventually the protesters got to go back to work. Everyone's got to survive, make a living, right? The politicians just sit there and just go, yeah, keep protesting. Okay, when do you have to go back to work? Right? This is why they don't want people to have money, because if people had a little bit of money in their pocket, they could take some time off of work to pursue and continue the protests, which the politicians would then be pressured more and more to address. But again, they don't have money, so they have to stop protesting and go back to work. You see how the system, you see how they fuck with it? Pardon my English. The next thing is that Chile's decision to let people draw from their pensions to help weather the pandemic could make the country vulnerable later, analysts are saying. I mean, look, it's a fair point. If the country doesn't have a lot of money and you're dipping into, retirement pension funds and things like that, there's a pretty decent point. So I don't know Chile's particular situation. I don't know if they own any bonds of value, gold, anything they could, sell as a nation in order to kind of recoup that over time. But again, I'm not an economist. I'm not pretending to be one either, right? The next thing is that the Haiti arrests top security chief in the top security chief in the murder investigation of Haiti's president has been arrested. Again, could it have been an inside job? Very much so. We all know very quickly. I'll just do a quick recap. It seemed like mercenaries or professional assassins showed up pretending to be DEA. So the president's, I guess you could say, multi-layered team of security stepped down. I'll be honest with you. Even if you say United States DEA were friendly, you don't want to let the 2 or 3 inner layers of the secrets of the agents that are guarding the president, respectively, to be let down. When does it ever? Does the president of the United States ever? Do the Secret Service agents ever let their guard down? Right? I'm not trying to criticize the agents. I'm just saying we got to look at all the angles here. Honestly, was it CIA, intelligence, organized crime? Was it a cover? Like, who knows? Right? Inside job. The next thing is that the Biden administration plans to unveil a push for new United States-Africa business ties. You see what I was saying a few minutes ago about how they're getting out of Iraq and then now saying, oh, look, let's look at Africa now. You see, the CIA, the intelligence community, they always got to shift the focus. Again, I hope I'm wrong, guys. I hope I'm wrong. But the next thing is that the man accused of trying to kill the president of Mali has died in custody. Again, sort of like did the Epstein kill himself thing. I'm sorry, not to be a conspiracy theorist, but we got to speculate because the government is lying to us so much. And governments, world governments for that matter. The next thing is that kidnappers have released another 28 abducted children in Nigeria. That's really, honestly, that's really good to see, to hear. Again, it would be great if they, let out all of them, but the next thing is that the Taliban has allegedly now taken over about half of Afghanistan at this point. Again, I don't want to sound like a broken record. It comes down to the perspective. Should there be external countries in there or not? Very simple, right? And if certain countries don't want to go in and get involved, then what happens if other countries do? It becomes sort of a proxy issue to that other nation that said they weren't going to get involved initially. It's tit for tat, right? Again, some people say that, the Taliban and the people of Afghanistan, that this is what they want. And again, I do not want to say anything with solidified fact or ascertain the veracity of anything unless I'm on the ground. It's unfortunate that we got to speculate again, but it's true, right? We're doing the best we can here. The next thing is that China has just launched a 6-month special campaign to regulate its internet sector and to crack down on, quote, malicious internet company practices, end quote, according to the Ministry of Industry and Information Technology. In other words, if I'm being totally honest with you folks, and again, this is the CCP, not the people of China. In other words, it basically means more censorship and internet companies to disappear that dared to allow a little more freedom is what's happening essentially, basically. I mean, that's just my opinion, but again, it's this is the same. I'm not fine. I'll compare it. Hitler, when he invaded Poland, how did he do it? He said he didn't do it like, oh, I'm invading Poland. He said, no. The people of Poland, they need me. We have to go help them. We have to go save them, for the sake of the greatness of Germany and things like this, right? I'm not saying that that's exactly how it went, but again, you can argue that was very similar with what Putin did with Ukraine, but that's still iffy because, we can argue that was propagandized as well in terms of how he said, the people of Ukraine are my people. I'm going there to help them, right? Question is, are they really or not? Unless you're on the ground, I'll be honest with you, I don't trust either side, whether it's, the West or any other country respectively. The next thing is that Facebook, Twitter, Microsoft, YouTube, and other big tech companies will now start to add content to a shared counterterrorism, quote, key database, end quote, aiming to crack down on material from, quote, white supremacists and far-right militia, end quote, according to Reuters. Can I be honest with you folks? As if they didn't already have this database. Forget the white nationalism thing. Don't get me wrong. Far-right extremism is an issue, just like the far left. It's absolutely there, and it's absolutely true. But to say that they didn't have this database before, give me a goddamn break. Come on. It's just become a little more public and official now. That's all. That's just my opinion. You're telling me they never had it till now? Come on. The next thing is that PayPal is teaming up with the Jewish NGO Anti-Defamation League to, quote, uncover and disrupt the financial pipelines that support extremist and hate movements, end quote, according to a joint statement. The initiative will focus on white supremacists and those propagating and profiting from anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, racism, and anti-immigrant, anti-black, anti-Hispanic, and anti-Asian hate. Again, end quote. Look, guys, I don't have a problem with that if that's actually what they were doing. Do you see what I'm saying here? And this is just my opinion. Don't get me wrong. Are they probably targeting actual extremists? Maybe. But the ratio, as we've seen, for example, with the 9/11 Commission or with the Patriot Act, right? For those that are familiar with it, the ratio we've seen for how many terrorists they caught with the Patriot Act compared to how many people, regular people they were spying on, was massive, right? So again, there's a distrust between the people and the government and these agencies. I'm all for, making sure that people don't get doxxed, their addresses don't get put online, making sure people don't get, vulgar death threats directed towards them, right? But if someone is sharing an opinion about a vaccine or something like this is where the problem starts, right? And if someone's just trying to send money to someone else, and PayPal's now going to get involved because, you might be you might have a show or something that potentially supports white supremacy. Well, who are they to decide? So now I cannot send money to someone because, this is an example, by the way, folks. It's not legitimate, hypothetical. Why? Because my show may have, I guess you could say, white supremacists in it. And don't get me wrong, that's not a good thing at all. But what I'm saying is that who are they to say this? If they're going to say this, provide evidence, provide receipts, send the person an email before you mess with their PayPal. Say, look, these are the people we found. Would you like to appeal this or not? But again, they're not doing that. They're just saying, no, don't worry, just trust us. Don't worry about it, just trust us, right? So again, this is what I'm saying. The next thing is that the U.S. Department of Justice is investigating whether Tether misled banks about crypto business. Executives behind the digital token said to face criminal probes into bank fraud, according to Bloomberg. It's Wall Street. They're going to do it with whatever. They'll do it with sticks, leaves, cryptocurrency. It doesn't, in my humble opinion, it's not going to change anything. The next thing is that the commanding major general of the U.S. Army sent out a public service announcement on Twitter ordering people to block and report others. Again, I don't know if that's just to the soldiers of the U.S. Army or to everyone. I don't know. Right. But this is I feel like regardless, left or right, left wing, right wing, independent, you name it. When the army gets political, we got an issue. At least in my opinion. Right. Because then it really starts to mess with the minds of the soldiers. And then they begin to question things. Right. And then they become politicians instead of soldiers. So I'm not saying that's good or bad, by the way. I'm just saying like the line hasn't been drawn for a while now. There are also, the next thing is that there are also tons of anti-regime protests in Iran, allegedly. So again, like I say, I know a lot of Iranian people, very nice people. It's the regime. It's not always the people. Oftentimes it's not the people at all, right? The next thing is that two separate, unusually large meteors illuminated the night sky over the U.S., Texas and Norway last night, excuse me. Again, unusual meteors, who knows, right? We'll see very shortly in some of the main episodes that all of you are probably looking forward to that it's not exactly a coincidence in many different regards. The next thing is that the British aircraft carrier HMS Queen Elizabeth and its carrier strike group have entered the South China Sea despite Chinese warnings. Again, I'm sure there's coordination with the U.S. Clearly, things are heating up. This is not necessarily a puppet show per se, unless if it is a puppet show, it's the best one I've ever seen put on in modern history in terms of, the way things are tightening up with regards to tension, right? So again, this is going to be sorry about that, guys. In my opinion, this is going to be quite, I guess you could say, quite substantial at the very, very least. The next thing is that there was leaked data covering all the NHS trusts in England show that the vast majority of hospital COVID cases being diagnosed after admission, in some cases weeks later, suggest it includes large numbers likely to have been admitted for other reasons. Again, I'm not trying to say COVID is fake, but there are a lot of angles to this that are not being shown, as we've seen recently with CNN. You know, the carrot and the stick is what the CNN executives have been emailing amongst one another, right? Things like that, saying, "Oh, the carrot, the stick's not working. We gotta bring out the carrot now." If that's not propaganda, then I with all respect, I don't know what is at this point, right? So, with that being said, folks, that's it for the news for today. We will catch up tomorrow with some news as well. But again, I mean, there's just so much coming out at once that it's just so much to cover. But it's definitely intriguing, to say the very least. Maybe that might not be the best word. But anyways, with that being said, we have another episode coming out later on today, and we'll catch all of you later on. Cheers.